We've learned everything we know about live program making from the hundreds of projects that we've produced over the years. These include celebrating the winner of the Scottish Album of the Year award, promoting the foremost solo bagpipe competition in the world, devising strategies to sell premium whisky and attract visitors to the distilleries, and creating a unique album launch video from the legendary Barrowland Ballroom. Hello, I'm Dougal Perman from Inner Ear, and welcome to the second episode of This Is What Streams Are Made Of, the series which is providing you with a comprehensive guide to live program making. We're not just here to teach you about live streaming, it's about live program making and creating a live digital experience in the process. In the previous episode, we introduced the series, and I also pondered how creating live content can help you position yourself as unique and indispensable in respect to protecting your job from being made redundant by AI. Today, we're delving into the S.T.R.E.A.M framework, S.T.R.E.A.M. Dollar bill, y'all. It's a little shout for Finlay, who can't help but see it written as an acronym with the full stops in place, and it reminded him of the classic Cream by the Wu-Tang Clan. And perhaps that was part of the influence, but really what we've done is come up with a framework, and frameworks are incredibly useful guides to making stuff and going through planning. And so we created one using the initial stream. Why not? If you try hard enough, you can kind of come up with these acronyms for whatever you like. I've got my notes on my iPad, which is why I look at it from time to time. I'm not using an auto cue, and I could really talk about streaming probably in a filibuster kind of a way, non-stop for hours and hours. I won't do that, I promise, but it's also useful to have this guide so that I stay on track, because as my colleagues could tell you, I can go off on tangents, as we all can, I'm sure. So the stream, to unpack it in a moment, but you will have a comprehensive understanding by the end of this episode into how to strategically plan, utilize technology and the resources available to you, manage audience engagement, take actionable steps to going live, and market your streams effectively. And so if you hadn't already sussed it from that, the STREAM acronym will stand for strategy, technology, resources, engagement, action, and marketing. So, as everyone says on YouTube, let's get into it. So strategy, let's start with the strategy. So strategy is something that people go, make way too complicated, because really it is simply a means to an end. It's how you're going to get from where you are to where you want to be. And so the first thing you need to do in that is decide and identify where you want to be. Now, we're going to do this in much more detail in future episodes, and probably the next episode is going to be all about strategy and objectives. But a strategy is crucial. Having a strategy really is crucial for any live program that you're making, because you need to set your goals and then understand your audience and plan your content accordingly so that you achieve your goals and you make this live program the very best it can be. As I think I said, and I did say in the last episode, Inner Ear's objectives are to magnetize, motivate, and monetize audiences. And to achieve that, we do it through the strategy of audience engagement. And then if you unpack that, our strategy for achieving audience engagement is to educate, entertain, energize and entice the audience. So that is thinking about what those mean or how we can apply those. The strategies of entertain, make the program entertaining, because if you enjoy it, you're going to take in more. Make it educational so that you learn something from it and you feel good about that, and it's something that you feel appreciative that you've learned something that you can apply. Energize it and get the audience enthused, and use the energy of the topic and of the presentation and the delivery to get the audience fired up. Give them some things to do and get them working with you, and then also entice them and leave them wanting more, but give them a call to action so that you've got something to lead them into and lead them on to doing next. So that would be our strategies. I'm a really big fan of boiling strategy down to 1 or 2 words to have as a guiding principle. I've researched lots of stuff on strategy because I've written about it a lot, and I was looking up 1-word strategies. For example, The Godfather Part 2, the strategy is succession. That's the guiding principle. So everything is about, in the storytelling, is about succession and leading back to that. I heard a marketer talking about the strategy behind the content posts and saying that Red Bull were really on point when it comes to their strategy in terms of what they post, especially on Instagram, and all of their posts are about energy. And so that's the strategy that they're putting out there, which obviously is the brand ethos for them. So in several of our projects that we've done for some of Diageo's whiskies, then our objective was to attract more people to come to the distilleries and use the brand positioning to entice people to buy the product, to buy special bottles of whiskey. And so to do that, we had a strategy of make live programs which celebrate and enhance the festival activity that we were covering, and create shared experiences that positioned the whiskies. In this case, I'm talking about Lagavulin and Kalila on the wonderful Isle of Islay, as must-visit destinations. So therefore, our guiding principles in that strategy are celebrate, enhance, and shared experience. Strategy should be used as your guide, as the compass that you follow to make sure you're on track. So really bear that in mind. Keep your objectives in mind, but bear strategy in mind all the way through the process with everything you're doing. Think, are we on point to make sure that what we're doing is in line with our strategy? What strategies have worked for you? Please do tell us by posting in the comments, and do that for your own benefit and each other's, because sharing those strategic learnings is very useful for everybody. And if you think about it, even if you haven't explicitly identified a strategy, you probably do have one that you're following. So just think about what it is. And where possible, boil that down to 1 or 2 words or a few words, because it makes it much easier to remember and it doesn't overcomplicate things, as people have a tendency to do with writing whole 100-page documents that they say is their strategy for this. That is not a strategy, that's an action plan. So more on that later. Point 2. Yeah, it is point 2. There's 3 in my notes because there was an introduction. That's not very helpful. Technology. So choosing the right technology can make or break your live stream, literally be the difference between it working or not. And the thing about live program making and live streaming as a crucial facet of that is that there is just so many different things to bear in mind. And that's why we do break it all down for you and take you through things bit by bit. But in terms of the technology, we're talking about the essential tech. We're talking about the cameras. I'm pointing at the cameras. You can't see them, but I can. And we'll get into all of the actual kit a lot more in episodes to come. But the cameras, the microphones, wearing a clip mic there, the lights, the vision mixer, all the hardware, but also the streaming software that you're using, and of course the streaming platforms. So when we stream, for example, we almost always, and I can't really think of any example now of why we wouldn't do this, go to our new favorite platform, which is the backbone of what we do really. And it's the first port of call, and that's Caster. And we like Caster for lots of reasons, but we send an SRT stream, and we can talk all about the technology in more detail in future episodes, but I can also provide some more links to unpack that sort of stuff and explain it in the show notes and the description. But an SRT stream stands for Secure Reliable Transport, and that's a magic way really of using bandwidth incredibly efficiently to pipe a high quality stream out when there may be low bandwidth. So it makes a much more robust, reliable way of getting your stream from where you are to the server on the internet. And so we send it to Caster, and then from there, that gives us a way of capturing it and stream it. So we could just stream it from Caster, and that would be fine. But we almost always will record it there on Caster's server, and then we will send it from there to wherever we want to go, where the specified destinations are. So if it was for our own programs, then we're usually always going to go to Vimeo, which we use extensively as well. And if Caster is the backbone of what we do, then what would Vimeo be? I'm trying to think of the anatomy, but nothing appropriate in all senses of the word is jumping to mind, so I'll avoid that. But anyway, Vimeo is extremely useful, and we use that a lot too. And it's a very elegant way of embedding a player on a website. So that's a nice thing to use. Also, if we want to make it private, password restricted, monetizable, we can do these things in Caster, but we'll often utilize Vimeo. But for social, as I say, for our own purposes, it's almost always going to be YouTube, but we may then go to LinkedIn as well, sometimes Facebook, Instagram or TikTok, or Twitter. They're really different cases, because there you're more talking about mobile streaming, and that is a separate issue. And yes, you can create hacks that will allow you to stream a desktop feed to a mobile platform, but for various reasons we don't recommend that. So we'll talk more about mobile only platforms in the future. But yeah, so we would go from Caster to whatever the social destinations are. So that's kind of a bit of a rundown of a bit of a top line overview really of what we're talking about. But our typical setup would be, and any streaming setup is really, you've got your input sources, and so that is your cameras and your microphones, and then sources of any other content. That could be background music or sound effects, or VTs, that is videotape as we used to call it, video features and pre-recorded material, and then also any graphics that you're overlaying on the stream. And so those are all your input sources. Oh, also I should say remote feeds coming in too. So that could be remote streams from somewhere. It could be remote contributors via platforms like Zoom. And all of these are your inputs. And then that is feeding into the hub, the mothership of your live stream control, your vision mixer. That's if you're using one. If it's a single camera stream, things are simplified and you don't need, typically you're not going to have a vision mixer or an audio mixer. But for a multi-camera, multi-input stream, which is mostly what we do, then you've got a vision mixer and an audio mixer. Sometimes they're one and the same thing, but often they're separate. And you mix all your sources that then may go through some processing, some audio processing like compression and EQ. There may be some video processing too, like color correction. And then you're going from there into your capture device and encoder. And that is how you get the audio and video signals into either a computer or a hardware encoder. And that is then, if it's a computer, it will have some production software like OBS or Wirecast or vMix or Livestream Studio or Vimeo Studio, I think it's called now, or anything like that. And then it's going through the internet to the streaming server. And then there is a bit of a tangent topic of that would be virtual studio environments like StreamYard or Restream Studio, or Vimeo events, but we'll again future episode on those kind of virtual events where it's all taking place online. Really, these are elegant ways of doing. You could just stream a Zoom call, but that's not very attractive, very high production values. So there's much better ways of doing it. But let's go back to whether it's a single camera stream or a multi-camera stream. You're going to your streaming platform. And as I mentioned earlier, if you use platforms like Caster and Vimeo or Restream or OneStream or several others, you can then simulcast, split the stream server side and send it to social platforms. So that's the technology. Could talk about this kind of stuff for hours, but as I say, more episodes on that to get into it. But always with this series, always about making live programs. We're not talking about tech for tech's sake. We're not talking about live streaming in abstract. We're always talking about making live programs because that's what we do, and that's what's going to set you apart when you are live streaming something. So the next one is R for resources. And resources includes the people, the content, the creative elements of the program. That's part of the content, but you know, you're talking there about your script, the storyboard that informs the planning, the script, the structure, the program plan, and all the support that you need to actually deliver the stream, to deliver the live streamed program. So there's a lot to think about there, but the most crucial resource really is your team. Now, sometimes it may just be you, and if that's the case, then you need to think about how you're going to perform all of the roles that you could have in a team delivering a live stream without breaking yourself in the process, because there's so much to think about. And that's totally possible to do by kind of stripping it back, by planning it properly, and by just thinking through how you're going to perform all those different roles. But if you're doing a bigger project, and like the bigger projects that we run, then, for example, in every August, in the middle of every August, we are immersed in the piping world in Glasgow because of the World Pipe Band Championships and the Piping Live Festival that leads up to it. And there, all the greatest pipers in the world come to celebrate the great music of the Highland bagpipes and the Scottish Highland bagpipes, and we're all over that with filming and streaming. So we're running 2 different teams covering the Piping Live Festival and the World Pipe Band Championships, and so we've got content capture going on, and we're creating packages for social media and VT features that we're going to play out during the World Pipe Band Championships live stream. We're live streaming different events from the Piping Live Festival, and then we've got crew in place at Glasgow Green working on location, live streaming the first day of the World Pipe Band Championships. So there's loads going on there. Now, when we're talking about a team, we are thinking about these are the kind of crucial roles. When I was planning this with Finlay, who's producing this episode, he said that crucial roles were like a bacon roll, or perhaps a roll with sausage and fried egg. These are crucial roles for an early morning setup. But other types of crucial roles include the producer. So the producer is the person who ultimately holds everything together and makes everything happen, and takes the lead on the planning and the delivery of the project. Then working very closely with the producer, and in terms of a live stream or a project or a live program making endeavor, then the producer and the director really are hand in hand. And the director is the creative lead, directs the action, directs the cameras and the talent, and then sometimes is also the vision mix operator, which sometimes done by the director and overlaps with that role. But the vision mix operators operating the vision mixer, obviously, cutting between the cameras, and sometimes also monitoring the audio, depends, but vital for a multi-camera production. Then you've got the streaming engineer, who's setting up, maintaining and monitoring the streams, and especially in the kind of routing and distribution that I described earlier, with the way we send an SRT stream to Caster and so on, and then it's actually distributing RTMP feeds to social networks. Don't need to understand any of that at the moment, but somebody does need to, and somebody needs to be on point with all that to make sure that it's streaming, and to monitor for quality control. They're checking the reliability of it, checking that the audio visual content is in sync, audio is in sync with the video, the mitigating buffering happening, and just making sure that the stream is preserving its integrity and that it's the best possible viewing and listening experience for your audience. You might have somebody on graphics and content, or it might just be the vision mix operator or even the producer who's doing that. But that's collating and playing out the graphics and visual effects, the soundtrack, sound bed music, sound effects, and any VTs that you've got as well, pre-recorded video clips. Then your camera operators, your camera crew, so in this setup we've got 2 cameras, and we've got the close-up shot of me, and then the wide shot of the workbench here in our radiomagnetic studio, I should say, which is part of this beautiful setup we've got in this beautiful building, where we rent space from the brilliant creative agency Bright Signals. It's a big shout to them, and thanks as always, for sharing your lovely space with us. And anyway, we've got 2 cameras here, and they're just both fixed, and we don't need a camera crew in this. But if you have operated cameras, then you will want operators, and then sometimes they might also be managing remote cameras. That's PTZ or pan, tilt, zoom cameras, and they can be remotely operated. One operator can operate multiple different cameras, and so there's different roles there, or different ways in which the camera operators actually work. Then sound, could have a sound recordist who's like a boom operator, or monitoring the recordings from different mics like wireless clip mics and things. But you'll also crucially have a sound engineer who's mixing the sound and monitoring it to make sure of the sound quality and maybe processing it and so on. Also will probably be liaising with the vision mix operator and the streaming engineer about any issues and resolving them. And then if it's a big enough production and you need them, you would have production assistants and or runners just to help the producer and the director and everybody involved in the team to run the live program. And then a crucial aspect for live streamed programs is the community manager monitoring the chat, moderating the chat room, and driving the audience engagement. And so your audience engagement strategy is really being put into effect by your community manager. As I mentioned earlier, there's other resources that we bring in together to make your program, which we can explore another time. But the team is crucial. So next is engagement, and engagement is crucial for retaining your audience's interest during a live stream. So thinking again about the strategies to keep your audience engaged, there are different methods that you can utilize, and these include the live chat going on in the chat room, and almost all platforms that you'll stream to have a chat room. And as I say, you may have one or more people moderating that chat. It's a good idea to answer questions, to respond, because it might not always be feasible for the on-screen talent, or you might not have somebody in that presenting kind of a role. Say if you were streaming a concert or a play, or some kind of performance, then you may not have somebody hosting and addressing the audience, but it may be very desirable to live stream that and create the live program around it. And so in that case, you really want the audience engagement to be looked after. And so it's a really good idea to respond to questions and comments, and then there's always a bit of tech support goes on too, and they're quite common issues that people come up against that you can help them troubleshoot, and the best times are when other audience members answer that. And so someone's saying, I just can't get it working, or I'm not getting any sound, or I'm not getting any picture, and lots of other people say, well, it's absolutely fine for me, and then you know that it's with that person specifically, and you can try and help them, but sometimes it's just something to do with their setup that you can't diagnose remotely. But other than live chat, you can also have polls and surveys running, used quite often in conference environments, but there's plenty of other use cases where polling would be very useful, and education is a good example. and then also where you're actually voting on the outcome, something that's actually going to affect the outcome of the live program, which is quite exciting because the audience are really shaping it and changing the direction of the program. So like really good if you can involve the audience to that degree. And then you can also have question and answer sessions with questions coming in via the chat and really igniting a lot of social media interaction. And when you do have someone who's a presenter or a host, then feeding, even if it's a big event, or if it's a bigger event than where the presenter can kind of feasibly be monitoring chat or being sort of easily made aware of questions coming in, then you can use some kind of device for getting the questions and comments from the audience to the presenter. And that can include an iPad or a phone, and using some kind of shared document like a Google Doc or some kind of shared notes app, so that the community manager is taking the best questions or the comments that they want to put to the presenter and the on-screen talent, and putting it in that doc, and so they can see it, which is a really good idea because it means then that the community manager doesn't need to be monitoring all of the chat going on, which can be overwhelming and can be quite off-putting. I've definitely been in that situation myself when presenting workshops or reports on things, and just one comment can just throw you off completely, and so you want to avoid that to make the best program experience possible for not just for your audience, but for the people making the program. But if you can get the presenter or the host responding to the comments from the audience, then that really makes the audience feel involved. We do this at the Glenfiddich Piping Championship, for example, where we're always feeding questions to the host who is responding to them in the room. And that makes the audience feel part of it and really feel valued. And that's a really great thing if you can integrate it in that way. We also have used game mechanics and gamified our live streams from time to time. And this is great fun and a really good way of engaging the audience. And we did it during lockdown with a brilliant project for Innis and Gunn beer called the Recommendation Game, which was had a spinning wheel, kind of a bit like Wheel of Fortune, and the audience had to recommend people to win a case of beer, and that's a brilliant device for creating a good rapport with the audience, and really they are directly affecting how the program goes, which is exciting because the audience has a real element of power there. With Fé Síle, the Islay Whiskey Festival last year with Lagavulin, we created a game called Treat or Peat, where the audience had to answer a question, and then the first two correct answers were represented by two players in the game on screen, who then represented these two audience members to compete in playing Peat or Treat, where it was a game of bluff, and each of the two players had a box and they didn't know what was in it. One of them was allowed to look in it, the other one wasn't, and then they had to bluff as to whether they had a treat. There was a piece of memorabilia that from the distillery that the online audience could win, or a lump of peat. And but and arguably actually a lump of peat from Lagavulin could be very valuable to some people. and it was a great device, and it was an activity and a hook and a way of drawing the audience in. And then meanwhile, the host and the two players of the game, the two contestants, were actually having a whiskey tasting and tasting the special bottling for that year. And it was a great fun device to do. So there's lots of different ways that you can engage your audience. Think about what engagement strategies have you found effective? Please do share them in the comments, and if you've got any quirky or unusual ones, we'd love to hear them. But anything that you find effective at all, even if it's just asking questions and prompting people to respond. Then A is for action. And that is something that the director gets to shout, but not usually in a live program, because the audience would hear. So, but it's something that without action there is no program. But you need an action plan. So you need to work through your action plan to actually deliver the program and to make it happen. And there's so many different things that go into making a live program. So we prepare for a program pretty meticulously for the live streaming process through the whole production framework, which is, I talked about it in the previous episode. We separate it into, it's 6, isn't it? Distinct phases. There's prelude, which is the concept and strategy bit, pre-production, the logistical planning, production, making the live program itself, then post-production, making use of that content, and then progression, which is then taking that content and making it work for you and keeping the project progressing further. And then the final phase is perpension, which, as I'm always say, is quite an antiquated word, but it means reflection and contemplation. So that's where you look back on the project and assess it. So here is our 10-step action plan, and we will get much more into this in a future episode. But these 10 steps are: imagine that you have 1 week to go before your live program. This is what we would do. If you've got longer, then you can spend more time on each step, and that's great. So point 1 is initial planning, 7 days before live stream. Point 2, strategy development. You devise your strategy 6 days before. Point 3 is technical setup. 5 days before, you figure out how you're going to actually do this technically, and make sure you've got everything that you need to be able to do it. Point 4 is content preparation. So if it's all completely live, then that's probably mostly in terms of any graphic elements and anything you want to use, like music in the program and the script and the structure. But if it's not all completely live, then you might want some pre-recorded material as well. Point 5 is promotion and marketing, and that's an activation of your strategy. Then point 6 is rehearsal and testing, and then you're really gearing up for the program. Point 7 is final preparations and just making sure that everything is in place. Point 8 is going live, and that's make your live program. And then point 9 is repurposing assets. So you back up, you review, you edit, and you utilize the content assets that you've created in the live program. And then point 10 is analysis and amplification. So that's where you are reflecting on how it went, looking at the stats, gaining some insight from that, and taking what you've learned on to the next project. So create your basic action plan at the start of the project as part of this S.T.R.E.A.M framework, because without the action plan, you can do it without an action plan, but you're bound to forget things, or it's going to be more difficult and stressful than it needs to be. So having a good plan to follow is extremely valuable. And then the final letter in the framework is M for marketing. So there's no point in making a live program, producing a live stream, creating a live digital experience if you don't tell anyone about it. So effective marketing strategies are crucial for attracting and retaining your audience. And you need to think about this pre-stream, during the stream, and post-stream, and have your tactics for your social media interaction, for using email, for collaborations with other live content producers or social media personalities, influencers, and just thinking about all of the different parts of your marketing mix that you can use to promote your program. And as I say, that is a before, during, and after activity. And we can go much more into detail on that in the future. But just to reflect on a very successful audience development and marketing activity that we had was in 2019. We did this big, involved, complicated project for Argyll and Bute Council for their cultural network charts, which stands for Culture, Heritage and Arts for Argyll and the Isles. And we did lots of different things as part of that project, and it was like if you looked at the combined skill set and experience of Inner Ear, it was almost like they had devised that project just for us. And in fact, in a way, they kind of had, because they were inspired to write the brief and issue the tender for it by a talk that I had done several years before for Expo North. But when we won that tender, we got into the 5 different elements of it, which was it culminated in the live program making and production of a special showcase event which showed off what Charts was and was going to be, because this was the launch of it. Then we made 5 short films, and that showcased some of the talent and the diversity of the region, and those were shown at the event and part of the live program, but also stood as standalone case studies. We did an extensive audience development process to drive the marketing of the showcase event. We delivered some workshops and training in on live stream production, and then we evaluated the project and the feasibility of live streaming for amplifying the artistic endeavour in the region. And a lot of that stuff has lived on, and they've gone on to do more of it. But anyway, the audience development bit, to do that, what we did was we firstly found several media partners who could carry the stream, and we cross-posted that through their Facebook pages and on some YouTube channels. So we used our own YouTube channel through Trad TV, which is one of our own projects. And then we also partnered with Expo North, with the National Piping Centre, Cowell Highland Gathering, and several others. And so the stream was simulcast to their own networks, and so it's reaching out to their audiences. And then we built a catalogue of relevant arts organisations around Scotland, the UK as a whole, and internationally. And during the run-up to the stream, during the stream itself and afterwards, we hit up contacts that we'd made with those arts organisations on their social media profiles and posted the stream links, and then we had some engagement going with the people in these communities, and it massively scaled the audience from the probably 1,000 or so we would have had, which, that's not insignificant. That's like trebling or quadrupling the amount of people in the room, but we got 40,000 engaged audience members as a result of all that concerted activity on the audience development. So those things of like media partnerships, finding specific relevant organizations to post to, and then having one-to-one social media interactions with the key people to get them to help amplify the activity. All of that really worked in marketing the charts live stream. So there you are. That is the stream framework to make the stream dream work. So that is S, strategy, T, technology, R, resources, E, engagement, A, action, and M, marketing. These are all the crucial things that you need to get in place to make your live program the very best it can be. So next time we're going to delve deeper into strategy and go through that and everything that's involved in it to help you devise your strategy to achieve your objectives when you're making your live program. And I should also say, please, of course, like everybody says, subscribe to this channel. You may have noticed this channel has got very few subscribers at the moment. Well, it depends on when you're watching this, doesn't it? But we deliberately picked, we never really used YouTube for inner ear in itself. We didn't used to create inner ear content by and of itself, other than the social media posts that we do talking about stuff we're interested in and some of the work we do. But we didn't make programs like this for ourselves because we were either making them for our own creative brands, Radio Magnetic, Trad TV and Walking Heads, or we were making them for clients. And so we've always thought about it, but then when we thought, you know what, let's make our own series and teach people everything we know about live program making, then thought, well, that would be a great opportunity for us to use YouTube, which we use all the time with Trad TV and we use for client projects, but we hadn't really made much use of for inner ear at all. So part of this process is charting for us the rise in popularity of our own YouTube channel. So that's going to be interesting to watch its development. But subscribe to the channel, like the video, and sign up for the waiting list for the book that I'm currently writing by the same name. This is what streams are made of, and you can be in with a chance to receive a free copy or a discounted copy, and you'll certainly be notified about it. But until then, thanks very much for watching, and catch us next time when we'll get into the strategy. Cheers.